I have heard it from many of my friends that there is simply no way that God can exist when there is so much evil in the world. How could an all-powerful, caring God exist when so many people are suffering? Simply put, the problem is, God is all-powerful and He is capable of stopping all the evil in the world. God is all-knowing and fully aware of the evil that is present. And God is perfectly good and caring, so He would desire the best for all of His creation. So how can this God exist when there is so much evil in the world that He created and cares about? A caring God and a suffering world seem to contradict each other, and leaves us with a problem. If God exists, then either God is not powerful enough to stop evil, God does not know that evil exists, or God is not good or caring. Since there is evil in the world, were my friends right? Well, this problem is certainly not a new issue to the Christian church. The problem of evil has been a huge impediment for many to accept the Christian faith. Thankfully, there are multiple responses that partially answer why God allows evil to exist. These responses and arguments are called theodicies. Before we get into the specific theodicies, we must lay some groundwork and establish some definitions. First, we are talking about a Christian God, one we hold to be a loving God who is wholly good, all-powerful, and knows all things. Second, we must distinguish that there are two distinct varieties of evil, moral and natural evil. Moral evil is evil that is committed by morally culpable free humans, us. Natural evil is the evil that we find in the world that is not caused directly by humans, such as natural disasters, disease, death, and decay. So, a look at some of the theodicies. Free will theodicy. This theodicy says that evil is a necessity for humans to have true freedom to make decisions. In order for there to be a capacity for good, there necessarily must be the converse option for evil. Since God values that we should have free will, people have been given the option to choose evil over good. Of course, this only partially addresses the problem with respect to moral evil. It is this option for choice that caused sin to initially enter the world when Adam and Eve chose to disobey God and introduce sin into God's creation. Fallen world theodicy. Linked to the free will theodicy, we see that the earth is a fallen place and is riddled with pain, suffering, death, and decay. Because God gives us free choice, that allowed the option for sin to enter into the world. When Adam and Eve chose to disobey God, all of creation suffered. We are now living in a fallen world, a world plagued with death and destruction. This explains the existence of both forms of evil, the natural evil because we are in a fallen world, and the moral evil because humanity has fallen into sin. Evil for God's glory. This is not exactly a theodicy, as God does not cause evil. Such would contradict God being wholly good. It is simply to say that God can use evil in the world to accomplish things for His glory. God works through the evil that is present in the world because of our choices and because we live in a fallen world. He is not limited in accomplishing His goals. Part of this is that suffering and pain provide opportunities for spiritual growth and character development, thereby proving that God can prevail regardless of the presence of evil. Humanity's understanding theodicy. This theodicy has two distinct components. The first component is that humanity's knowledge is limited and we are therefore unable to fully understand God and how He functions in our world. His ways are beyond our ways, and it is not our place to question God and His ways. The second component has to do with our ego and our own human biased perceptions and philosophies. The premise of the argument is that we are saying that God cannot exist because He is not running things the way that I would run things. God cannot exist because He should be doing the things the way I would do them if I was God. We cannot, as limited, mortal, and corrupt beings, dictate how God should run His creation. It is absurd to suggest that we would have the perfect answers to running the universe, and that God cannot exist because He is not operating creation according to our understanding and preferences. The famous Christian writer C.S. Lewis struggled with the problem of evil, eventually coming to the conclusion through the moral argument that the existence of evil actually shows the existence of God. How could we even know what evil is, unless the concept comes from the existence of a greater good. If there was no God and no concept of ultimate justice, then there would be no problem of evil, inasmuch as we would not be able to even define what evil is. The problem of evil then constitutes proof of the existence of God, based merely on people possessing a concept of morality. Even with all these responses to the problem of evil, if one still chooses to believe that God does not exist, then it does not solve the problem of evil. Evil exists whether we believe in God or not. However, removing God from the consideration serves to take away hope for millions who need to know that good can still overcome evil, that God has an ultimate redeeming plan to restore the earth. The fact is that God has a plan to counter the sin that entered the world, His Son. Jesus came to bring life back to our world, to counter the evil present in our world. That was God's plan, and it continues to unfold as His will is carried out in His church.